The aroma of burnt garlic and overcooked pasta clung to the air in our cramped third-floor walk-up. It was a familiar, depressing scent, one that had become the unofficial perfume of my early 20s. I ran a hand through my dark, perpetually slightly greasy hair and sighed, dropping my backpack onto the worn linoleum floor. "Honey, I'm home," I called out, trying to inject some cheer into my voice that I definitely didn't feel. This apartment was suffocatingly small, a shoebox in a not great part of Brooklyn. The rent ate up almost everything I earned, everything we earned. We had this unspoken rule. The apartment was a temporary stepping stone, a necessary evil, until I landed the chef gig I'd been trained for. My name is Raiden Miller, 20 years old, and a recent proud and quickly disillusioned graduate of the prestigious Culinary Institute of America. I'd walked across that stage, a white toque on my head, my diploma clutched in my hand, ready to conquer the New York food scene. Reality, however, was a three-way rotating roster of soul-crushing part-time jobs. Mondays and Wednesdays, I was a prep cook, peeling potatoes until my fingers were numb at a pretentious farm-to-table bistro that treated its staff like dirt. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I drove for a meal kit delivery service, navigating the insane gridlock of Manhattan in a rusty borrowed van. Weekends, I catered children's birthday parties, crafting tiny, perfect cucumber sandwiches while trying to dodge flying cake pops. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't what I had envisioned while learning the perfect soufflé. But it was money. Every dollar was funneled into a shared savings account for one reason: Maya. Maya. She was my anchor, the beautiful, spirited center of my universe. She was a budding freelance photographer, incredibly talented, but still struggling to build a client base. We'd been together since high school. She was the reason I pushed through the grueling hours, the reason I tolerated the chef's constant yelling, the reason I was living off stale bread and instant noodles. I wanted to marry her. I didn't just want to, I needed to. I had this whole future mapped out. Me in a crisp chef's jacket, owning a little place in the village, her with a dedicated studio, and maybe eventually a kid or two running around a decent-sized apartment. The engagement ring was my current obsession. A simple, elegant platinum band with a small, ethical diamond. I had $403.12 saved in a separate jar, labeled "for the rest of our lives." Felt agonizingly slow. I found Maya sitting at our rickety kitchen table, illuminated by the harsh overhead light, scrolling through her phone. She was wearing my old NYU sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun. Even in that state, she took my breath away. "Hey, babe, rough day?" she asked, not looking up immediately. Her voice was flat. The catering gig was brutal. A 5-year-old decided my meticulously plated artisanal mini quiches were suitable targets for his water pistol. I forced a laugh, leaning down to kiss her forehead. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "Fun," she murmured, finally putting her phone down. "I spent 8 hours editing photos for Mrs. Henderson's cat calendar. I swear that cat has a better agent than I do." I sat opposite her and took her hand. "It'll happen, Maya. You're good. We're good. Just wait a little longer." I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Raiden, I need things to change. I'm tired of being broke. I'm tired of this apartment. I'm tired of eating canned beans for dinner." Her eyes, usually full of fire, looked weary. "Me too, Maya. That's why I took the extra shifts. Chef Alistair said they might be looking for a full-time line cook next month. It's still not a proper sous chef role, but it's full-time. Benefits. Steady income." I watched her face hopefully, waiting for the spark of optimism. But it didn't come. She pulled her hand away and started drumming her fingers on the table. "Yeah, next month, maybe." "Look, I'm going out with Chloe tonight. We're hitting that new gallery opening in Chelsea. Might network a little." "Chelsea? That's expensive," I said, frowning slightly. Chelsea was a world away from Brooklyn, both geographically and financially. "It is. But Chloe said they're giving out free champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Think of it as saving money on dinner, Miller." She finally gave me a genuine smile, the one that melted away all my fatigue. "All right, be safe. Text me when you're on the subway home." Will do. Maya left half an hour later, looking stunning in a little black dress and a borrowed faux fur coat. I watched her go, a wave of pride mixed with a faint, persistent anxiety washing over me. I decided to clean up the apartment while she was gone, hoping to surprise her. I vacuumed the threadbare carpet and started collecting the clutter. When I got to the small shelf near the door, I picked up her camera bag to move it. It felt heavier than usual. Curious, I unzipped it. Nestled amongst her lenses and filters was not her usual camera charger, but a small velvet box. My heart hammered against my ribs. I picked up the box. It wasn't the size of an engagement ring box. It was the size of jewelry, maybe earrings, or a delicate necklace. I swallowed hard and lifted the lid. Inside, resting on a satin cushion, was a set of cufflinks, heavy sterling silver, engraved with an intricate, almost corporate-looking logo I didn't recognize. They looked expensive, very expensive. Too expensive for Chloe, who was just as broke as we were. Too expensive for Maya to have bought herself, given our shared bank account. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I stood in the middle of our cramped living room, the scent of burnt garlic suddenly thick and suffocating again, clutching a pair of cufflinks that felt like a ton of bricks. They weren't for me. I didn't own a suit, let alone a shirt that needed cufflinks. Who was wearing them? And where had they come from? I placed the box back exactly where I found it. I wiped the fingerprints off the velvet and zipped the bag. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was nothing. A gift from a relative. A prop for a photo shoot. Anything but the one thing that had suddenly, violently, elbowed its way into my mind. The silence of the apartment felt deafening. I looked down at the "for the rest of our lives" jar, the small pile of bills mocking me. The hopeful aroma of the future had just been replaced by the bitter, metallic taste of doubt. The cufflinks were a constant, invisible stain on my thoughts, tainting everything. They were still in Maya's camera bag, untouched, but their presence was louder than a full orchestra. I didn't dare confront her. I was terrified of what I might uncover, and worse, terrified of losing the future I was working so desperately to build. In the days that followed, Maya was radiant, but distant. She'd always been a chatterbox, but now her replies were clipped, her gaze often glued to her phone, which she guarded with sudden, fierce possessiveness. She had developed an alarming habit of leaving the apartment for hours, claiming client meetings in parts of the city she'd never mentioned before. "Where exactly is this meeting, Maya?" I asked one Thursday as she carefully applied makeup, something she rarely did for a casual client. "The Upper East Side," she said, her voice a little too casual. "Mr. Sterling, a huge real estate mogul. He needs headshots for his company board." "Wow, that's a big break. Is he paying well?" She paused, looking at her reflection. "It's complicated. It's a huge networking opportunity, Raiden. Money will follow." I nodded, forcing a smile that felt like stretching cold clay. I wanted to believe her, wanted to smother the tiny, cold voice in my gut screaming lies. That night, I was working the dreaded meal kit delivery route. It was pouring rain, the city a slick, miserable maze. I was stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the FDR Drive, feeling every ache and strain in my body. I needed a distraction, something to convince myself I wasn't just a burnt-out delivery boy with a worthless degree. I scrolled through job listings on my phone while idling, focusing on the ones that paid enough to justify the endless hustle. Then an email popped up. It was from the Farm to Table Bistro, Chef Alistair's place. Subject, regarding the full-time line cook position. My heart leaped. This was it. The stability, the benefits, the raise. It would cut my saving time for the ring in half. I clicked it open, wiping a bead of sweat off my temple. "Dear Raiden, thank you for your interest and hard work. While we value your dedication, we have decided to move forward with another candidate who possesses a broader range of experience in high-volume, fine dining environments. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. My vision blurred. The email was a cold, impersonal knife twist. I wasn't just tired, I was stuck. The one solid piece of the puzzle I had been counting on had crumbled. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel, the horn blaring in frustration from the car behind me. I pulled over to a quiet side street, feeling a sudden, desperate need to talk to Maya, to hear her voice tell me it would be okay. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I texted, "Bad news about the job. Need to talk. Where are you?" No reply. I kept calling, a panic building in my chest that had nothing to do with the job and everything to do with the cufflinks. After the fifth call, a text finally came through. From Maya. "Out with Chloe. Phone is almost dead. Don't wait up. Love you." The "love you" felt obligatory, like a footnote. I was restless, unable to sit still. I checked my delivery list. My next drop-off was a luxurious, high-rise residential tower near Gramercy Park. The kind of place I only delivered to, never lived in. As I pulled the dented delivery van up to the building's sweeping, canopied entrance, the doorman, looking impeccable in his uniform, took the boxes. I glanced past him, through the polished glass doors, at the opulence of the lobby, marble floors, a massive crystal chandelier, and a cozy seating area in the back. And that's when I saw her. Maya. She wasn't wearing the borrowed faux fur coat. She was wearing a different, softer, more luxurious cashmere coat that I'd never seen before. She wasn't with Chloe. She was with a man. He was tall, silver-haired at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire education. On his left wrist, a heavy, expensive watch gleamed under the lobby light. And on his cuffs, his impeccable, starched white cuffs, were the silver cufflinks, the exact same logo. I froze. The world outside the van went silent. All I could hear was the frantic, desperate pounding of my own heart. The man leaned in, his silver hair brushing her cheek, and spoke, his face a confident, easy smile. Maya laughed, a carefree tinkling sound I hadn't heard from her in months. It was a laugh of genuine happiness, of effortless ease. It was the laugh she used to share with me before the struggle started. Then she reached up, placed her hand gently on his tailored lapel, and let him guide her toward the elevators. The way her hand rested on him was intimate, possessive, and sickeningly familiar. It was the touch of a couple, not a client and a photographer. "Mr. Sterling," I whispered, the name of the client suddenly fitting together like the final devastating piece of a puzzle. A real estate mogul, wealth, ease, everything I couldn't provide. The message on my phone flashed again. "Don't wait up. Love you." The words were no longer a tired excuse. They were a cruel, calculated insult. I drove away from the tower, not back to Brooklyn, not back to the delivery route, but just away. I drove aimlessly, the rain a relentless curtain around the van, trying to outrun the image burned into my mind. My job loss, the endless hustle, the beans for dinner, it was all for her. The savings jar, the planning, the hope, it was all a foundation for a life she had already decided she didn't want. While I was scraping burnt grease off a restaurant floor and battling rush hour traffic, she was lounging in luxury, choosing a path of instant gratification over our shared future. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt hollowed out, erased. I finally pulled the van into an all-night diner far out in Queens. I sat in a booth, the vinyl seat cold against my legs, and pulled out my phone. I logged into our shared bank account. The balance was almost zero. I checked the transaction history, a series of large, unexplained withdrawals over the past month. Photo equipment, one read. Studio rental, another claimed. But they were all the day after a supposed client meeting. She hadn't just met him. She had been using my money, the money I was killing myself to earn for our future, to facilitate her betrayal. That was the breaking point. The lie about the job I could have weathered. The betrayal of her body I could have maybe eventually forgiven. But the calculated theft of my hard work and the complete destruction of our shared dream felt like a physical assault. I looked at the "for the rest of our lives" jar under the passenger seat. $473 for now. It was a joke. I made a phone call. Not to Maya, not to a friend. I called my only real estate in New York, my current landlord. "Yes, this is Raiden Miller in 3C. I need to give you my 30-day notice. Yes, effective immediately." My voice was flat, emotionless. I drove the van one last time back to the apartment, parked it, and walked up the 3 flights of stairs. I packed one small backpack, my passport, my wallet, a change of clothes, and my chef's knives. I grabbed the little savings jar. I left everything else, the furniture, the clothes, the life we built, for her to deal with. On the cluttered kitchen counter, I left the final remnants of our future. The $473 in the jar, next to a single, hastily scribbled note. It didn't say goodbye, it didn't say I knew, it simply said, "The taste of ambition is bitter when the recipe is poisoned." I walked out the door, down the stairs, and into the wet, cold New York night. Raiden Miller, the struggling chef, was gone. The only things left were the scent of burnt garlic, the crushing silence of the empty apartment, and the ghost of a dream. I hailed a taxi, tossing my backpack inside. "Where to?" the driver asked. I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs. "The farthest bus station you can find. I'm heading west. Just keep driving." 6 years, and the bitter taste of betrayal had slowly, painstakingly been replaced by the rich, complex flavors of a life forged in fire. I was no longer Raiden Miller, the struggling delivery boy from Brooklyn. I was now R. Miller, the rising culinary consultant and executive chef of The Hearth, a boutique, hyper-seasonal restaurant nestled in the affluent, mountainous outskirts of Denver, Colorado. The journey west had been brutal. I'd worked my way across the country, a dishwasher in Chicago, breakfast cook in a roadside motel in Nebraska, a grill cook in a bustling Tex-Mex joint in Arizona. Each job was a grueling lesson in resilience and the mastery of different regional cuisines. My rule was simple: leave no trace, no social media, new phone number, only cash transactions when possible, and a strict avoidance of anything or anyone that smelled faintly of the East Coast. My single focus was on my craft. My hands, once delicate from culinary school, were now calloused and scarred, the marks of a true working chef. The Hearth was my pride. It was a minimalist space, exposed wood, sleek steel, and an open kitchen where I commanded my small, dedicated team. I didn't just cook, I curated. My food was honest, intense, and celebrated the land around us. Critics loved the narrative of the mystery chef, who had appeared out of nowhere to revitalize the Denver fine dining scene. My success, however, wasn't just my own. It was tethered to the woman who had plucked me from a disastrous stint running a remote catering kitchen in Aspen, seeing a raw, intense talent no one else did. Her name was Cassandra Cassie Vance. Cassie Vance wasn't just rich. She was power. At 28, she was the CEO of Vance Hospitality Group, a multi-million-dollar empire built on luxury hotels and high-concept restaurants. She was tall, with striking blonde hair that usually held the impeccable style of someone who knew her worth, and eyes the color of glacier ice that missed absolutely nothing. Cassie had given me the resources, the artistic freedom, and the capital to build the Hearth exactly as I wanted it. In return, I gave her unadulterated success. Our professional relationship was ironclad, built on mutual respect and a shared, almost obsessive devotion to perfection. But lately, the lines had started to blur. We were in her corner office, overlooking the snow-dusted mountains, reviewing the financials for the new wine list. The air crackled between us. "The sommelier's selections are conservative, Raiden," she said, her voice a low, smooth alto. She always used my first name, the one I had tried to erase, a gentle reminder that she knew exactly who I was and what I was running from. They're smart, Cassie. They pair well with the seasonal menu changes, no unnecessary risk. I leaned against her desk, the faint scent of charcoal and rosemary from my chef coat mixing with her expensive perfume. She stood up, closing the ledger with a decisive snap. She circled the desk, stopping unnervingly close to me. Her gaze was intense. Risk is the only way to evolve, Raiden. In the kitchen and out of it. Her meaning was clear. For the past year, Cassie had been subtly yet deliberately moving our relationship beyond the professional. Late-night discussions over wine, shared laughter over terrible hotel designs, and the look in her glacial eyes that was anything but businesslike. She admired my ambition, she appreciated my struggle, and she clearly wanted more. I prefer a steady hand, CEO Vance, I replied, my voice measured, my muscles tensing. I was trained to handle high heat, but this was different. A faint smile touched her lips. You know I prefer you call me Cassie. And you know I want to break down that wall you built 6 years ago. She placed a hand gently on my forearm, right over a burn scar from a disastrous pastry class. You've run far enough, Chef Miller. Whatever drove you away, it's ancient history. It's time to move forward. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and the intensity in her eyes instantly sharpened into professional focus. The general manager of our LA property just sent me a frantic email. We're losing the pastry head to a competitor. She sighed, the moment evaporating. Saved by the corporate crisis, Chef. Happy to step away from the fire, Cassie, I said, exhaling slowly, my own tension easing. I retreated a step. I went back to the hearth, burying myself in the controlled chaos of the dinner service. My escape was the kitchen, the relentless heat, the urgent shouts of orders, the smell of butter and salt. It was real, it was honest, and it never lied. But the night wasn't over. Later, as I was wrapping up the late prep, my sous chef handed me a package. Came to the front desk, Chef. It was marked personal. It was a thick, padded envelope, mailed from Brooklyn. The sight of the East Coast zip code made my hands instinctively tremble, something that hadn't happened in years. I ripped it open. Inside was a thick stack of papers. They weren't legal documents. They were printouts of old online articles and forum posts. The first was a New York Post article, dated a month after I disappeared. Real estate scion, Victor Sterling's engagement called off after sudden change of heart. The next was a year-old forum post on a photography site. Anyone know Maya V. Miller? Talented but disappeared after an intense relationship crisis. The final and most devastating was a photograph. It was a current-day snapshot, a grainy shot taken on a street corner in a quiet brownstone neighborhood. The woman in the photo was Maya. She looked tired, her vibrant eyes now shadowed with a deep weariness. She was wearing a thick, simple coat and holding a cardboard box of old files. She wasn't the glamorous girl who'd left our apartment for Chelsea. She looked like a ghost of her former self, a soul weighted down by failure and regret. Beneath the photo, written in a cramped, shaky handwriting I didn't recognize, was a note. She never stopped looking for you. Years. She put ads in every major city paper out west. She visits the old apartment every year and the anniversary. She burned everything, the money, the man, the life she tried to buy. She's paying the price, Raiden. She lost everything. She lost you. My blood ran cold. The kitchen, usually my sanctuary, felt like a cage. The 6 years of carefully maintained walls around my heart shattered into a million sharp pieces. She was broken. She had suffered. And worst of all, she had looked for me. The cold, clean resentment I had held onto for years suddenly felt heavy and complex, muddied with a terrifying mix of guilt and pity. I leaned against the stainless steel counter, the air knocked out of me. The past wasn't ancient history. It was breathing down my neck. Just as I crumpled the note in my fist, my office door swung open. It was Cassie. She had returned, her face set with a mixture of concern and proprietary determination. "Raiden, I saw your van. I knew you hadn't left." She stopped, her eyes instantly spotting the discarded envelopes and the tension in my posture. "What is that?" I straightened up, folding the photo and the note into my pocket. I looked at the ice blue ambition in her eyes, the powerful wealth and certainty she radiated. And then I thought of the tired, broken woman in the photo, who had finally found the trail I thought I had buried forever. "It's nothing, Cassie," I lied, my voice a rough rasp. "Just an old recipe I thought was lost." But she didn't believe me. She walked up to me, placing both hands on my shoulders, her touch firm and possessive. "Raiden," she murmured, her face close. "Whatever is trying to pull you back, let me cut the strings. I can protect you. I can give you the world you deserve. You and me. No ghosts, no poverty, just success." Her lips were inches from mine, and the choice was suddenly terrifyingly clear. The clean, prosperous, future-focused certainty of Cassie Vance, or the messy, painful, soul-wrenching reckoning with the history that had just caught up to me. I closed my eyes, the smell of cold, sterile money from Cassie contrasting sharply with the memory of burnt garlic and desperation. Then, my eyes snapped open, focused on a path forward. "I need a few days off, Cassie," I said, my voice low and final. "Something has come up. I need to take care of it." "Care of what? Who?" she demanded, her hands tightening. "My past," I said, gently removing her hands. "And then I'll be back, for good." But I knew I was lying to her, and maybe to myself. I walked out of the hearth, leaving the warmth and security behind, clutching the crumpled photograph of the woman I had left broken, and stepping out into the cold, silent promise of a reunion that I knew deep down was already years too late. The flight from Denver to New York was a long, cold study in regret. 6 years of carefully constructed emotional armor felt like cheap plastic, shattered by a single grainy photograph and an anonymous, cruel note. I landed at JFK feeling like an intruder in my own past. I didn't call anyone. I didn't announce my arrival. My first destination was the Brooklyn address I still knew by heart. Our old apartment building looked exactly the same, maybe a little dirtier, a little more worn. I stood across the street watching the third-floor window that used to be ours. A different curtain hung there now, a different life unfolding behind the dusty pane. The sight didn't trigger nostalgia. It triggered the sharp, fresh pain of the day I walked away. I spent the next 2 days following the faint, cold trail left by the anonymous note. It took hours of searching the public records and making discreet, cash-only inquiries. The address on the envelope led to a post office box, a dead end. But the photo's backdrop, a distinctive iron gate and a carved lintel, eventually led me to a quiet neighborhood in Queens. I found the brownstone, and I waited. On the third afternoon, she appeared. Maya emerged from the building, carrying not a camera bag, but a worn briefcase. Her expensive clothes were gone, replaced by simple, practical separates. She wore no makeup, and the vibrancy that had once defined her was muted, replaced by a permanent shadow of anxiety. She was still beautiful, but the beauty was now a tragic, haunting thing. I watched her cross the street, heading toward the subway. My heart, which I thought had calcified years ago, hammered a desperate rhythm against my ribs. I had prepared a speech, a cold, measured explanation of why I left, and a promise that I was happy now. But when I saw her up close, that carefully prepared script evaporated. I stepped out from the shadow of the coffee shop awning. "Maya." The sound of my voice, a voice she hadn't heard in 6 years, made her freeze mid-stride. Her briefcase slipped from her fingers and hit the pavement with a heavy thud. She turned, slowly, as if afraid to break the spell. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, met mine. They searched my face, cataloging the changes, the shorter, professional haircut, the sharp, tailored clothes that had replaced my grungy hoodies, the cold certainty in my posture. "Raiden," she whispered, the name catching in her throat like broken glass. It was the sound of 6 years of grief compressed into one syllable. I walked toward her, the space between us charged with the weight of our shared past and my devastating disappearance. It's really you, she murmured, tears instantly welling up. I thought I was hallucinating. I didn't soften. I couldn't. I had to know the truth before I let the dam break. Why did you look for me, Maya? My voice was rough, unyielding. Her face crumpled. She took a step closer, reaching out, but I instinctively took a half step back. The rejection was like a physical blow. Why did I look for you? Her voice rose, thick with emotion. Because I loved you. Because you were everything good in my life. I was selfish and stupid, Raiden, but I wasn't a monster. I made a mistake, a terrible, desperate mistake, and I paid for it every day. She bent down, frantically snatching up her briefcase. You just left. No word, no warning, just a jar of savings and a note. Do you know what it's like to realize you've thrown away the one person who truly believed in you for a lie? I know exactly what it's like to realize that, I countered, the memory of the cufflinks and the hotel lobby still vivid. I found the cufflinks, Maya. I saw you with Victor Sterling. I saw the empty bank account. You didn't just cheat on me. You poisoned the foundation of our life with my own money. You didn't leave me an out. You left me nothing. She recoiled, her face pale. He promised me a career. He promised me the life I thought we couldn't achieve. It was the desperation, Raiden, the crushing poverty, the endless struggle. She trailed off, shaking her head. But it all blew up. He dumped me a month later. I lost the apartment. I lost my clients. I lost all my savings trying to keep up the charade. She looked down at the street, a profound sense of loss radiating from her. I realized I didn't want the luxury. I wanted the tiny, hot apartment and your burnt garlic and your hope. But by then you were gone. And you kept looking, I pressed, my anger mixing with a terrifying empathy. Yes, for years. I didn't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know the truth. I needed to tell you I finally got it. The money was empty. The life with you was everything. She raised her eyes, swimming with unshed tears. I know I ruined our past, but Raiden, please, can we try for a future? The raw, desperate hope in her eyes was almost unbearable. For a split second, I saw our old life, the laughter, the ambition, the simple, honest love flicker into existence. I saw myself holding her, forgiving her, letting the past finally die. But then, my phone rang. It was Cassie Vance. I didn't want to answer it in front of Maya. The call shattered the intimacy, the fragile bubble of our reunion. Raiden, I'm sorry, but I had to track you down. Cassie's cool, commanding voice cut through the phone. We have an emergency. The Denver Chronicle critic is coming in unannounced tonight, and the sous chef is out sick. I need you on the line now. I booked you the next flight out of LaGuardia. It leaves in 2 hours. Check the details on your email. Cassie, I can't right now, I muttered, glancing at Maya, who was watching me, her face pale with dread, instantly recognizing the tone of power and ownership in the half-heard conversation. You can, Raiden. Your name is on the door. Your reputation is at stake. You built that place. Don't let some piece of past business destroy the future we've built. Her voice was low and firm. Not a request, but an order veiled in business jargon. Get on the plane, chef. I'll meet you at the airport. I hung up. The short conversation felt like a violent intrusion, an urgent tether pulling me back to my new life. I looked at Maya. She wasn't pleading anymore. The hope in her eyes had been quickly replaced by a devastating, defeated certainty. The CEO, she stated, her voice flat. The future. I opened my mouth, ready to explain, but the words felt hollow. The contrast was too stark. On one side, the messy, bankrupt past of betrayal and struggle. On the other, the clean, wealthy, powerful present that demanded my immediate, undivided attention. I have to go, Maya, I said, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. My life is in Denver now. I have responsibilities. My career is there. And a new life? She asked, a single tear finally escaping and tracing a path through the dust on her cheek. I looked down. A better one. A secure one. She closed her eyes, taking a long, shaky breath. I was too late, wasn't I? I'm sorry, Raiden. I'm sorry for everything. I should have known I didn't deserve a second chance. She didn't try to stop me this time. She simply stepped aside, leaving the path clear. Goodbye, Raiden. I couldn't answer. I didn't look back. I hailed a cab and headed toward LaGuardia, toward the waiting jet stream of success and the powerful woman who controlled it. The pain of leaving her now was far deeper than the pain of leaving her 6 years ago. Then, it was anger and self-preservation. Now, it was a brutal choice between a genuine, heartbreaking love that I knew would always be tainted by the past, and a cold, glittering success that came with a price tag, Cassie Vance. As the taxi merged into traffic, I pulled out the crumpled note and the photograph. I opened my hand over the near storm drain. I let the evidence of my past life drift down into the darkness. The future is now, R. Miller, I told myself. The dish is served. I landed back in Denver to the controlled, pristine chaos of success. Cassie met me on the tarmac, not personally, but via a black town car and an urgent message that she was already at the restaurant, holding the line. I rushed straight to the hearth. The kitchen was already in the weeds, but the moment I stepped onto the line, the atmosphere shifted. The energy I brought was pure, focused command. For the next 3 hours, I was exactly what Cassie needed, a machine of culinary perfection. We salvaged the service, delivering a flawless experience to the unsuspecting critic. After the last ticket was killed and the kitchen was being shut down, Cassie found me standing alone, scrubbing down the steel pass. She was radiant, flushed with victory. That was magnificent, Raiden. No one else could have done that. You're indispensable. She walked up and took the steel wool from my hand, placing it aside. You handled the emergency. Now tell me about the past. I looked at her, at the sharp intelligence and undeniable beauty that came with a promise of absolute stability. I was tired of fighting. I was tired of running. Her name was Maya, I said, my voice quiet, the name sounding foreign in the sterile air of the hearth. She was my fiancée. She broke my heart and emptied our bank account for a rich man. I saw them together and I disappeared. That's all there is. Cassie's gaze softened only slightly. She lifted her hand and gently wiped a streak of grease from my cheek with her thumb. She was a fool, Raiden. Look at what you've built without her. A true chef doesn't cling to a poisoned recipe. He evolves. I came back for the business, Cassie, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I saw her. She was ruined. She was looking for me. I left her again. The past is dead. The future is here. The confession was a calculated move, a confirmation of commitment. A slow, victorious smile spread across Cassie's face. Good, because I did a little digging, Chef Miller. I found her. I wanted to make sure she wouldn't be a distraction. My stomach dropped. What did you do? Nothing illegal, Raiden. Just persuasive. I bought the building where she works. It's a small, struggling, non-profit legal clinic. I'm closing it in 30 days for redevelopment. I also had my people quietly block a photography grant she was relying on. I didn't threaten her. I simply removed the safety net. She'll have to move, far away. She'll never find you here. She had sealed the door to my past with the cold, hard efficiency of corporate warfare. Maya's final plea for a second chance hadn't just been rejected by me. It had been systematically destroyed by Cassie. I stared at her, a profound chill replacing the warmth of the kitchen. Her possessiveness wasn't based on love. It was based on acquisition. I was her prize, and she had eliminated the competition. You didn't have the right, I finally managed, the words tight and constrained. I have every right, Cassie stated, stepping closer, her voice laced with seductive power. I am your partner, Raiden, professionally and soon personally. I invest in winners and I eliminate liabilities. You are mine. She leaned in and kissed me, a forceful, confident kiss, tasting of expensive champagne and victory. I kissed her back, accepting the cold comfort of her certainty, accepting the brilliant, heartless future she offered. 2 months later, the Denver Chronicle critic gave The Hearth a rare 4-star review. The restaurant was fully booked for months. Cassie and I were officially dating, a power couple on the Denver society circuit. I had traded the promise of a simple platinum band for a lifetime of luxury and ambition. We were hosting a massive private event for the Vance Hospitality Board at a lavish mansion in Aspen. I was in my element, overseeing the plating of a complicated sea bass dish, the final, perfect amuse-bouche of the evening. Just as the plates were about to leave the kitchen, a commotion started outside. A young server hurried over to me, her eyes wide. Chef Miller, there's a woman at the gate. She says she's here to deliver something to you. Security's handling it, but she won't leave. I stepped out onto the porch overlooking the gate. The security lights were harsh. The woman was small, bundled against the Colorado cold. It was Maya. She hadn't come to plead. She had come on a mission. She had tracked me one final time, probably using the public announcements of the Hearth's success and my association with Cassie. She held up a small, familiar object in her gloved hand. It was the "For the Rest of Our Lives" jar. It was empty. Security was moving toward her, but she shouted, her voice echoing across the pristine, silent snow. Raiden! I came all this way to give you this back. I heard about the 4 stars. I heard about your success. She rattled the empty jar, the sound stark and hollow. I never found happiness after you left. I lost everything. And I wanted you to know that I understand now. She pointed at the jar. You were saving that for a life of honest work and real love. I replaced it with a lie. I'm paying my price. But are you paying yours? She gestured toward the massive, glittering mansion behind me, and then specifically at Cassie, who had just emerged onto the porch, her face a mask of furious, glacial calm. Is she the reward, Raiden? The price of leaving the man you were and becoming him? She challenged, her voice breaking on the last word. You escaped the poverty, but did you escape the betrayal? Or did you just trade one gilded cage for another? Security finally reached her, gently but firmly pulling her away from the gate. She didn't fight. She looked directly at me one final time, her eyes burning with a mixture of agony and tragic clarity. Goodbye, Raiden. I wish you all the burnt garlic in the world. She was gone. The immense silence that followed was broken only by the gentle clinking of silverware inside the mansion. Cassie walked up beside me, placing her hand on my arm with cold assurance. She's desperate, Raiden. Don't let her ruin this. I looked at the hand on my arm, the perfect manicure, the massive diamond ring. I looked at the mansion, the symbol of everything I had struggled for. I had the success, I had the power, I had the beautiful rich woman who ensured I would never be poor or abandoned again. But the small empty jar rattled in my mind. I'd been so focused on escaping poverty and betrayal that I hadn't noticed I'd become a willing participant in a new kind of transaction. I hadn't just replaced Maya with Cassie. I had replaced love with a partnership and honesty with a highly profitable lie. I had walked away from my heart's desire to avoid pain, only to find that success, when served cold, had a bitter, metallic aftertaste. You're right, Cassie, I said, my voice heavy. She's gone. Let's finish the night. I turned back toward the dazzling lights of the mansion, toward my perfect life, the perfect plates, and the perfect, cold emptiness where my hope used to be. The ambitious chef had won, but the 20-year-old dreamer had been left permanently behind, lost somewhere between a Brooklyn walk-up and a mountain of success. It was too late. For Maya, who lost the man she loved to a moment of weakness, and for me, Raiden Miller, who had lost himself to the pursuit of a victory he no longer wanted.